Hello and welcome back to Tiff Loves Tofu. Today we have a super special meal prep recipe featuring some of my favorite foods. We got tofu, we've got green beans, rice, and eggplant. This was super fun to put together and super delicious to eat, and I can't wait to show you how to make it. And as always, let's go through our ingredients. So we're going to be cooking some green beans and we're going to make this super delicious. We're going to fry them up. So it might not be the healthiest, but it's so yummy. And we're going to use garlic salt, my absolute favorite seasoning besides mushroom seasoning. And we're going to use garlic and we're going to use some black pepper and we're going to, of course, use some oil. For the Mapo Tofu dish, we are going to be using silken tofu. This is key for the dish. And then we're going to be using some shiitake mushrooms, which we're going to chop up in the food processor. And we're going to use some gochugaru or red chili flakes or cayenne pepper, whatever chili pepper that you have. We're going to be using some chive sauce, which is new. And this is something that I didn't add in the previous recipe. And we're going to use some garlic and some ginger and of course the spicy bean sauce, which is essential to making this dish taste amazing. Oh, and the red Sichuan peppercorns as well. And the dish would not be complete without some green onions. And finally, we're going to be making an eggplant dish and we're going to slice it into long 2-inch wide strips. And we're going to be using a 5-spice glaze, which is 5-spice, mushroom seasoning, sesame oil, soy sauce, and some white pepper. And it is absolutely delicious. And without further ado, let's get cooking. Let's start off with the eggplant. So we're going to want to slice this into long strips. So we're going to cut it vertically and then we're going to cut it in half, which is going to give us about 2-inch wide strips. This is just going to be a really great way for the eggplant to hold its shape, especially as it's cooking. So right now, we're just going to cut it in half and that's the perfect size. So we're going to lay this on a parchment paper lined baking sheet. And then with the 5-spice glaze, we're just going to brush it lightly over one side of the eggplant. And we're going to pop it in the oven for about 15 minutes. On to the garlic green bean. So we're of course going to be using some fresh garlic and we're just going to mince it. You can use your knife or you can use a garlic press like I did. As for the green beans, we want to trim the stem end and you can also trim the other end just for it to look good, but honestly you don't need to, just trim the stem end. Make sure that the green beans are super clean and also dry before we add them to the pan. So then in the pan we're going to add some oil. We're going to make sure that it's hot before we add the green beans. In order to prevent it from overcrowding, we'll probably have to do it in 2 batches. So while that's cooking, we're then going to go back to our eggplant and we're going to take it out. We're going to flip the eggplant to the other side. And as you probably expected, we're going to be brushing the other side of the eggplant with the remainder of the 5-spice glaze. And we're going to do that and then pop it in the oven for another 15 minutes. This is such a healthy way to eat eggplant because eggplant's notorious for absorbing oil. So I really love baking it. Back to the green beans. So the first batch is pretty much done at this point. As you can tell, it's a vibrant green color, but it's not too mushy. It's just right and it's just cooked. So we're gonna put the green beans in a bowl with a paper towel so that it can just absorb any excess oil. And now we are going to add the remaining green beans and allow it to cook for about 4 to 5 minutes or until it's a vibrant green color as the previous batch. So now these green beans are pretty much ready and we're going to take this out, pour any excess oil in a separate bowl, and then in the same pan we're going to add the minced garlic, we're going to add the green beans, the garlic salt, and I didn't videotape it here, but we're also going to add about a tablespoon of mushroom seasoning. And we're just going to stir this around for 2 minutes and it's now done, and we're going to set it to the side while we focus on the eggplant. And we're just going to take this out and we're pretty much done with the eggplant, and we're also going to set that to the side and onto the Mapo tofu. Super quick to prep, but we're going to prep the garlic, the ginger, and our shiitake mushrooms, which is going to be super easy. We're just going to want to trim the ends, and then we're going to pretty much pop everything in the food processor to chop it up into small pieces. And of course, if you don't want to waste the ends, you can certainly keep it as well, but just make sure to trim it if it starts to look a little bit moldy or there's some dirt on it. But in a very small food processor here, we're going to chop it up. And ta-da! It is all chopped up, but as you can see, it's into really small pieces. So this is supposed to resemble ground pork, but of course it's vegan. Onto the green onions, we're going to be using the white ends to fry with the garlic and the ginger and the mushrooms. As for the green ends, that's going to be added to the Mapo Tofu when it's completely done as a topping. And on to the star ingredient, the silken tofu. So this is only one block here, but we will be using 2 blocks. The other block actually broke into pieces because it's just so delicate. It's actually not uncommon to cut silken tofu on the palm of your hand. I know it sounds super dangerous and I wouldn't recommend it, especially if this is your first time cutting tofu. But as you can see here, we're going to want to cut this into 1-inch small cubes, and then we're going to set it to the side. In the same pan that we used for the green beans, we're going to add some sesame oil along with some red Sichuan peppercorns, and we're going to allow it to fry for a bit just to release the flavors. And then now we're going to add the garlic, ginger, and the white ends of the green onions. And then we're going to fry it for about a couple more minutes before we add in the spicy bean sauce, and then let that simmer for about 30 seconds to a minute. And we're going to add the chive sauce, which is super flavorful, some gochugaru. And then we're gonna stir this around, let this roast for a bit until it turns into a paste. So then after about a couple minutes, then we'll go ahead and add in our chopped mushrooms, and then we're gonna mix this and fully coat this with the paste. If it does get a little bit too dry, you can definitely add a splash of water just to help deglaze it. And then now we're gonna add some vegetable broth, and then we're gonna wait for this to boil, and then we'll turn it down to a simmer. And then we're gonna add the cornstarch slurry, and then this is gonna basically thicken up the sauce. We want this to be like a gravy-like texture, so if it's still too watery, then we'll wanna add more cornstarch slurry. And then once it's ready, we're going to add all of the tofu, and there's my broken pieces of tofu. And very gently, we're going to fold the tofu so that we can coat it evenly with all of the sauce. Allow the tofu to simmer for about 4 to 5 minutes just so that it can heat up evenly, and then we're going to top it with some green onions. I've made this recipe at least 50 times in my life, if not more, and each time I'm trying new ways to make it, and this is honestly my favorite way to make Mapo Tofu. And there you have it. We have all our food ready, and we're just gonna pack everything up in some Tupperware. So we're gonna start off with the steamed rice and top it off with the eggplant, and then we're gonna lay the green beans to the side and then finish it off with the tofu. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this recipe or would like to see more videos like this, please hit the like and subscribe button below. Otherwise, see you in the next video.